Hesitation continues without an enforcing rule. Decisions stall at the moment they are required. Moments that demand closure remain open. Time moves forward while judgment remains pending. This delay accumulates cost, not internally at first, externally. Commitments lose their edge, statements lose weight, signals are issued, then suspended. Others begin to wait, then they stop waiting. They proceed without alignment. Trust thins through repetition, not through conflict, through absence of resolution. Each pause fractures continuity, each deferral interrupts sequence. The chain of action weakens link by link. Responsibility becomes diffuse. Ownership appears provisional. Outcomes drift. The environment adjusts. Decisions root around the delay. Authority migrates elsewhere. This is not confrontation. It is quiet reassignment of reliance. No announcement is made. Internally, something erodes. Judgment is issued but not honored. Intent is registered but not executed. This produces internal contradiction, a pattern of self-breach. Not once, repeated. Consistency dissolves, not in values, in response. The individual remains present. The response becomes unreliable. Over time, hesitation becomes the expected interval. Pauses are anticipated. Silence is budgeted. This alters how cues are interpreted. Signals to proceed lose urgency. Deadlines soften. The cost compounds across domains. Professional contexts narrow tolerance. Social contexts reduce dependence. Opportunities do not disappear loudly. They reassign quietly. They stop waiting. The longer the delay persists, the more it normalizes. The behavior ceases to be questioned. It becomes factored in. At that point, the damage is already complete. No correction is requested. No explanation is sought. The erosion has finished its work. Judgment exists but does not function as closure. Authority remains present but no longer anchors action. Nothing dramatic occurs. Nothing resolves. The cost simply continues. Soft approaches are repeatedly applied to hesitation. They do not hold. Awareness is introduced first. The delay is labeled. Nothing changes. Recognition does not interrupt behavior. It only documents it. Reflection is added next. Time is taken to examine the pause. The pause expands. Deliberation becomes recursive. Judgment waits for certainty. Certainty never arrives. Reframing is attempted. The hesitation is renamed as caution. The behavior remains intact. This relabeling protects the delay. It removes pressure. It grants permission. Structure is sometimes added. Lists, frameworks, decision matrices. These systems slow the moment further. They multiply checkpoints. They formalize postponement. External feedback is invited. Opinions are gathered. Consensus is pursued. Authority disperses. Responsibility fragments. Judgment dissolves into noise. Deadlines are softened. Flexibility is praised. Urgency is treated as crude. The environment adapts faster than the individual. Others decide. Processes bypass the delay. Internal resolve is also tried. Silent commitments, private intentions, they fail quietly. No breach is visible. No correction follows. Accountability without enforcement does not function. It records failure after the fact. It does not prevent it. Partial controls produce partial compliance. Hesitation does not respond to partial pressure. It exploits it. Each method assumes hesitation is a knowledge problem, or a confidence problem, or a context problem. It is none of these. It persists across clarity. It survives confidence. These approaches avoid confrontation. They preserve comfort. They delay enforcement. As a result, the same pattern repeats. Judgment forms. Response erodes. The gap remains and widens. No alternative method closes it. They orbit it. They normalize it. What does not impose consequence cannot compel closure. And closure is exactly what hesitation withholds. The collapse is systematic, not dramatic, predictable. Each softer approach fails in the same way. It allows delay to continue unchallenged. A judgment must terminate in an explicit decision at the moment it is formed, with no allowance for suspension, deferral, or internal delay beyond that point. If a judgment is reached, it is treated as final and binding in that moment, and any non-execution is classified as a breach of judgment rather than an extension of deliberation. No internal justification, contextual shift, or secondary evaluation is permitted to reopen or pause a concluded judgment once it has been reached. A judgment that does not close into decision is not considered valid, complete, or operative, and is therefore regarded as void until it is forced to terminate into a definitive outcome. This rule works because it collapses the gap between judgment and response. Hesitation survives inside that gap. The rule removes it. When judgment is forced to terminate immediately, delay loses its operating space. There is no interval to extend, no pause to inhabit. The rule converts judgment from a provisional state into a terminal one. Once terminal, it cannot be reopened without being invalidated. This changes how judgment functions. Judgment stops behaving like an internal note. It becomes a binding closure. Because suspension is no longer permitted, the system recalibrates upstream. Judgment forms more cleanly. Excess evaluation reduces by necessity, not effort. The rule also eliminates ambiguity about failure. If execution does not follow judgment, the break is explicit. It is no longer hidden inside delay. This clarity matters. Ambiguous failure preserves patterns. Explicit breach exposes them. By defining non-execution as a violation of judgment, the rule prevents reinterpretation. Delay cannot disguise itself as caution. Postponement cannot masquerade as responsibility. Socially, the effect is immediate. Responses regain predictability. Timing stabilizes. Others no longer wait for closure that may not arrive. Signals regain reliability. Trust stops eroding through uncertainty. Internally, the rule restores alignment. Judgment and response are no longer decoupled. Intent is no longer stranded. This alignment reduces self-contradiction. Judgment is either honored or invalidated. There is no third state. The system becomes binary. Closure occurs, or judgment is acknowledged as incomplete. This removes the slow bleed of authority. Authority does not require dominance. It requires consistency of response. The rule enforces that consistency mechanically, not through will, through structure. Over time, hesitation loses leverage. It cannot extend itself. It cannot hide. The rule does not motivate action. It eliminates delay as an option. What remains is a closed loop. Judgment enters, decision exits. Nothing else persists. This rule does not negotiate. When judgment forms, the system closes. There is no sanctioned space for delay beyond that point. If judgment is suspended, it is not preserved. It is null. It carries no authority. No accommodation is made for comfort. No exception is granted for context. The boundary holds regardless. Hesitation cannot exist inside a closed system. It requires looseness. This structure provides none. If delay appears, it is visible. It cannot hide behind interpretation. It cannot borrow legitimacy. The system does not punish. It does not persuade. It simply enforces closure. Judgment either terminates or it is invalidated. There is no intermediate state, no provisional holding pattern, no protected pause. This boundary remains in place without reinforcement. It does not escalate. It does not soften. Over time, ambiguity is removed by repetition, not by explanation, not by appeal. What cannot operate within this boundary falls away. What remains conforms to it. The rule stands. It does not adapt. It does not respond. Delay encounters the boundary and stops, or it exposes itself and collapses. Nothing further is required.